Good evening, South Windsor, and welcome to the South Windsor Town Council regular meeting on Monday, March 20th. Could we please get a pledge of allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councillor Evans?
Here.
Councillor Kubowski?
Here.
Councillor Lopez? Councillor Paterna?
Here.
Mayor Pendleton?
Present.
Deputy Mayor King? Here. Councillor Kozakowski?
Here.
Councillor Gamble?
Here.
Councillor Leidecker?
Thank you. In my mayor's remarks this evening, I would like to welcome the new recruits of the South Windsor Police Department that we have the opportunity to meet and thank for all their service. And Chief, if you come up, please.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. It was brought to my attention a couple weeks ago that we had kind of through the pandemic deviated from the practice of trying to bring our newer hires in and introducing them to you folks and letting you put a name with a face. So I have with me tonight our 6 newest, and they're in various states of newness, but they are here nonetheless. It's a practice that I think is valuable, and I'm glad it was called to our attention as Sergeant Cleverton has been so busy and so active with the recruiting and hiring of new folks. So I'll have them come up. Actually, they can all come up. Come on up, guys. Don't be afraid. So I'm going to just tell you who they are and where they are in their state of newness, and I'll give you a little bit of info about each one. So first on the list, we'll go by seniority, by badge number, is Officer Chris Miska. This is Chris. Chris Miska. He was hired in August of 2021. Prior to being hired at the police department, he was a paramedic with the Ambulance Service of Manchester. He's our only paramedic on staff, and he's also an emergency medical service instructor, which is a huge asset to us. Prior to his life as a paramedic, he served in the United States Air Force. I knew that would get someone's attention. Where he served as, I believe his MOS was an aeromedical evacuation technician. Is that right? Okay. So this is Chris Miska. Next in line after Chris was hired, Chris, like I said, it was in August of 2021. In October, a couple months later of 2021, Jared Grabowski, second from the end. Prior to being hired, Jared was on active duty also with the United States Air Force, where he served as a security forces officer. Next in line is Officer Victoria Weiss, right here. Victoria is a graduate of Eastern Connecticut State University and was previously a dispatcher for another nearby municipality. We won't name who's who. And she graduated from New Britain's Police Academy 4 months ago. And she just recently completed her field training and evaluation program. So she's our newest on-the-road, solo, independent, fully working patrol officer in the building. And she's currently happily assigned to the evening shift. Tonight's her first night on evening shift after a brief stint on midnights.
There was a Jeremy Weiss at one time, wasn't there?
Yes, there still is.
Are there any relation?
No relation.
Okay.
Nope.
I knew I heard the name though
Yep.
before. Okay.
Next in line after Victoria was hired is Officer Nicholas Sarfo, badge number 218. Nicholas is a U.S. Army veteran, and he's still in the reserves, and he was actually not too long ago deployed to the Horn of Africa on an anti-terrorism mission, and he serves as an infantryman and squad leader in the Army. Nicholas was born in Ghana, and he's the department's first naturalized U.S. citizen. He graduated from the Police Academy in Meriden a few months ago. He still is currently in his field training, and he's on pace to complete his field training in another few weeks, and he'll follow Victoria out onto the road, and he will then be the newest of the new. Next in line is Officer Andre Rogers in plain clothes. Andre graduates from the Police Academy 2 weeks from tomorrow. So he's counting the days. He probably has a whiteboard, and he just checks off the days. But we cannot wait to have him graduate from the academy and start his field training with us. Andre is a graduate of Providence College, and he also has his master's degree from UConn. And he, like I said, is set to graduate in a couple weeks, and he'll start his 14-week field training from there. And next, last but not least, by any means, is Officer LeVar Gary. He will start his first day of employment with us 1 week from today. So he will come to us for a couple of weeks, and then he'll go to the police academy. Prior to here, he worked in the healthcare field as an IT analyst, and he's got a bachelor's degree from Nichols College. And we look forward to having him. He's going to bring a lot of experience. They all bring different experiences and different walks of life. As you all know, we work very hard to hire the best people we can possibly find. What I would like to point out is these folks all, not only did we choose them, but they chose us. And some of them who worked in other municipalities not far made very deliberate decisions to choose us. And I think that it is, that those decisions are reflective of, I like to think it's reflective of the agency, but certainly reflective of the town, the support that we have, the climate here. So I'm very happy to have them. I think they're happy to be here. And this is the sixth newest. And there's others that were hired during the pandemic, and they're out there off and running. And I think I put in my manager's monthly report, if you look at the last 5 years, almost 40% of our agency has been hired sworn in civilians. So there's a big generation gap. You have those of us with growing equators and white wall hair, and then you have a gap, and then you have these young folks who are smart, dedicated, professional. They get it. They are on board with all the reform we've seen, and they're fantastic assets already. So I'm happy to have them.
Good, thank you. My microphone. I'd just like to say a few words. Welcome to South Windsor, and thank you for your commitment and your dedication to our community. Good luck in school. Thank you, Air Force vets and Army vets. We love our veterans, and we love police officers, so we will support the department. We do support you. And thank you, Chief, for bringing them forward to us, and we do appreciate you. Don't ever let that go out of your mind. We do appreciate you. Okay, thank you. And tomorrow is the first day of spring, yay! So let's move on. We have adoption of the agenda. Councilor Kozakowski, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Motion to adopt the agenda.
Is there any changes in the agenda, moving anyone up in the agenda? We're not doing any of that this evening. There you go. Councilor Gamble. A second? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Not hearing any. The motion carries. Communications reports from the town manager, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I emailed all of you a report the other day. So reorganization for the town. The town has had some recent changes in positions with staff. As a result, the town will need to go through a reorganization. I have a preliminary reorganized structure to put together already, but I'm in the process of working with the town attorney to make sure we are able to meet all the approval requirements. It is my expectation to bring the revised reporting structure to all of you and the public at the next town council meeting. In terms of Evergreen Walk, a quick update. Dude's Donuts had their ribbon cutting on last Friday and are officially open for business. Just last month, we opened Shake Shack, and just before that, Love Sack opened as well. We're beginning to see the renaissance of Evergreen Walk come to fruition. Additionally, the town is working with Nike, the Goddard School, and Whole Foods on their construction. And lastly, we're aware of a number of other prospects for Evergreen Walk and the development at large. We're continually working with Charter Realty to bring back Evergreen Walk bigger and better than before. Lastly, I'd like to offer a special thank you to our Department of Public Works. While we've not had many major storms this winter, the storms we have experienced lasted a long duration and required significant skill. It is because of our staff's skill that we efficiently administered salt and expertly dispatched staff in order to save taxpayer dollars and resources. These last few storms have highlighted the department's professionalism and skill, and we are truly fortunate. And one other item I emailed to all of you just maybe an hour ago is in regards to the Avery Street guardrail and the issue associated with that. We did bring out a third-party professional from the Connecticut Training and Technical Assistance Center at the University of Connecticut to review that guardrail, and she provided us with the following memo. On February 14th, 2023, I visited Avery Street at the request of Vincent Stetson, South Windsor Director of Public Works, to review a guardrail installation. The guardrail in question is located on the eastern side of the street for a short section north of Kelly Road. It runs along the edge of the roadway, adjacent to sidewalk, and east of that, a brook. The guardrail has been installed in accordance with state specifications and is maintained in proper condition. Its placement is in compliance with standards and does not present any operational issues. So with that, I think that issue is basically put to bed on the town side at this point. So I don't see any additional or further action needing to be taken on that item. And with that, if there's any questions or concerns the council has, I'd be happy to answer them or get answers for you.
Thank you, Mr. Maniscalco. Does anyone have any questions for the town manager? Councilor Kozakowski.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I don't see any questions, Mr. Maniscalco. Thank
Thank
you. Moving on, public input for any items on the agenda. Public input should not exceed 30 minutes. When recognized by me, the mayor, the speaker shall approach the lectern, give their names and addresses. Speakers shall avoid personal attacks or impugning or alleging an improper motive to any person. The speaker may address the council on any item on the agenda. The speaker shall limit their speaking time to 5 minutes. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to the council on any item on the agenda? There's a little button on the bottom of your microphone. There you go. Thank you. Name
Thank
and
you.
address, please.
My name is Carolyn Venn. I'm the Executive Director of the Friends of Wood Memorial Library and also a resident at 101 Rugby Lane. I'm also joined tonight by Leith Johnson, who's our archivist and reference librarian. I'm speaking on behalf of the Wood Memorial Library Trust in support of the financial allocation later tonight for the building. On behalf of the Friends and our Board of Directors, Wood Memorial Library is our home. Since 1971, we have provided cultural and educational programming and welcome more than 10,000 people on an annual basis, as you know. We also steward many collections and have employed a professional archivist for the past 10 years, not necessarily Leith, but others. Each organization at Wood owns museum collections housed in the building, which include colonial furniture, art, taxidermied birds, and Native American artifacts. And the Friends has a growing collection of organic educational materials, such as pelts, pottery, and baskets. In addition to our circulating children's and young adult library books, archival collections include manuscripts and rare books, business ledgers, farm records, photographs, genealogical records, yearbooks, architectural drawings, and ephemera. There has been discussion about Wood's storage of valuable archive assets related to town history, and those include tax records, various commission reports, maps, voter lists, annual reports, and a variety of records from town clubs, organizations, and schools, both past and present. Over the years, many professional amateur researchers have also utilized all of these collections for book publications, exhibits, and other periodicals. I'll also remind you that the Emergency Management Center is also adorned with many archival images from Wood. Leith has worked with Clay Major and Jessica Glass of the Wood Memorial Library Trust since the inception of this project on the HVAC system for Wood. Leith has lended his expertise about the importance of consistent humidity and temperature control for the preservation of all of these assets. By supporting the Wood Memorial Library Trust with this financial allocation later in the evening, it's for an important HVAC project. You're supporting not just a historic property here in town, but also the cultural and educational assets that it houses, which benefits the community at large. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on any item on the agenda? Please come forward.
Tim Shepherd, 45 Newberry Road. I had mentioned to some of the political leaders in town back when South Windsor had a grant to study Main Street and how to preserve Main Street. And at that time, I sort of expressed the feeling that, just support what is going on. As an example, for instance, most of the land that was shown in that study to be potential development and detrimental, so to speak, to the town is all land that is, that the owners want to have developer rights done on it and see it preserved. And I think generally, over these last 10 years, I think it's easy to say that probably $2 million have been spent on the street doing things that the various people believe is in the interest of the street, of the town. And it's not necessarily things that you would see, but you would certainly see if they didn't occur. So for you folks to step up with this money, if you agree to do it, and support the private sector effort, I think is great and really appreciated. And it's not that Main Street is so special. There's a lot of great streets in town, but now we're talking about just our Main Street. It is pretty unique. So I hope you go for it. You shouldn't feel badly going for it. I think it's a great deal. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on any subject, topic that's on the agenda?
Hello, I'm Jessica Glass, 1837 Main Street, president of the Wood Memorial Library Association, which is the trustee organization of the Wood Memorial Library Trust. I'm not sure how much background I need to give, but just to be sure we're covered, Will Wood, a local cattle farmer and philanthropist, built the Wood Library for the town of South Windsor in 1926 in memory of his parents. It was one of South Windsor's 2 libraries until 1968, when it was decommissioned and the town built the larger central library here. Will Wood had also set up an endowment to pay for its maintenance, which it still does today, although it's now a privately run institution. The dividends from these invested assets are what pays to keep the lights on and the doors open. Our insurance, it just went up 9%, utilities, snow removal, elevator, maintenance, et cetera. And although we benefit from generous individuals and companies that do things for us for free or at cost, such as lawn care and light bulbs, our portfolio's income does not cover emergency repairs, like the ADA accessible restroom this year, or capital projects like climate control systems. And that's covered by grant money, private donations, and town support. And that's why it was so exciting to be able to get funding from the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development through the town of South Windsor, as what the state calls a town asset, the Wood Library. We'll be able, hopefully, for the first time to open the doors for more exciting and educational and entertaining programs inside during the hottest summer days for the first time since 1926 when the building was built. I think we're the last museum in Connecticut that does not have climate control behind basic heating. So just technically, the proposed building-wide direct outside air system, DOAS, will achieve museum quality humidity control of 40 to 50% relative humidity, which will also greatly improve human comfort. For programs drawing a crowd in the second floor gallery on hot days, the design includes a supplemental heat pump system when extra cooling is needed. So for the most part, we use our original 19 radiators in a single heating zone throughout the building for heating, but individual thermostats will regulate each one, which hopefully increases energy efficiency too. So unfortunately, the project progressed, and we found out that we had to remediate hazardous materials, lead abatement and mold, and then we watched inflation take its toll and the budget shrank. We went to the town, explained the situation, and they generously came up with the funding needed to make up the shortfall for this project, so hopefully we won't have to scale everything back and redesign. We're proud that the Wood Memorial Library and Museum has become known as a significant historic, architectural, archaeological, and cultural resource in this area. So if you appreciate the Wood's unique collections of local Native American artifacts, native birds, early American furniture created by local artisans, as well as priceless and fragile photographs and archival materials that chronicle the cultural history of South Windsor, please lend your support for funding this climate control installation that is critical for the preservation of our collections. We hope that you'll approve the use of town funds to cover this budget shortfall for us and help us to make what many call the gem of South Windsor more available and more comfortable for the staff, volunteers, and more visitors for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak to the town council on any item on the agenda? One more time, anyone from the public would like to speak to the council on any item on the agenda? Not seeing anyone, we'll move on. Mr. Maniscalco, would you mind shutting off that microphone, please? Thank you. Item number 8, Councilor Kabowski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item number 8, approval of the March 6th, 2023 Town Council meeting minutes. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby approves the minutes of the regular Town Council meeting of March 6th, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any corrections? Councilor Evans.
Thank you. On page 9 of 10, in the third to last paragraph, it states, Councilor Evans called for point of order. She claims to have not made any comments about Mrs. Delnicki's level of high standard. I would like that to be stated, because I stated it. I did not claim it, because there is, it can be backed up with proof. The following sentences are not factually correct, but I won't get into making an amendment with those unless someone else wanted to.
So you would like to change the word from claims to stated? Is that the only correction that you'd like to see?
That I would like to make, yes.
Okay. In hearing that change to the minutes, is there any discussion on that? Not hearing any. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Not hearing any. Oh, that you're opposed? I'm sorry, we need a roll call, please.
Councilor Evans? Yes. Councilor Kabowski?
Yes.
Councilor Lopez?
Abstaining?
Councilor Paterna?
Yes.
Mayor Pendleton?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor King?
Yes.
Councilor Kozakowski?
Yes.
Councilor Gamble?
Yes.
Councilor Leidecker?
Thank you. So the motion carries. Thank you. Moving on the agenda, we have 9, communications from liaisons, officers, and boards directly responsible to the council. Is there any council member that would like to give a report, please? Councilor Kozakowski.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor. The Planning and Zoning Commission has been very busy the past couple of weeks. They've held 2 meetings and conducted a lot of business. First, at their meeting on March 7th, which was a special meeting, they approved text amendments to the zoning regulations and the subdivision regulations, which they did a lot of things, but effectively created inclusionary zoning where that any subdivision in the town or any multifamily development would require a certain percentage of their housing units, new units, be deemed affordable, according to, I believe it's 80% AMI. Also with the subdivision regulations, if a developer or subdivider prefers not to designate one of the units or any the required units as affordable, the commission created a fee in lieu of affordable housing. So where a certain dollar amount would have to be submitted for a fund to be collected in an affordable housing fund, and that would absolve them of requiring to do units, affordable housing units. So that said, I believe we're going to need to work on creating the housing committee that was suggested out of the affordable housing plan that was adopted last year. I think town manager has been working on that. So we'll probably be seeing that probably sooner than later, because once we start collecting funds, we should probably have a good idea of what we're gonna be using them for. And then moving on to, and also at that meeting, they adopted, or they voted to opt out of a provision of Public Act 2129 regarding a required amount of parking spaces for housing units. You may remember that's the same public act that required accessory housing units to be allowed in the zone, allowed accessory to single-family dwellings. The commission opt out of that, as well as that requirement, as well as the council. So new regulations can be created in the same spirit of those. Similar to that, that's what they did today, or did on March 7th, where the prescribed parking requirements for multifamily dwelling by the state, we wouldn't have to follow that as long as we have the Planning Zoning Commission and the council opts out. So I would expect probably a resolution sooner or later coming from that, either the planning department or the town manager. And lastly, they had a meeting last Tuesday on March 14th, where they held a public hearing for the proposed zoning regulations regarding the moratorium for warehouse uses. And they have a very substantial proposal that deals with a lot of things, but most specifically buffer requirements for warehouse and other manufacturing industrial developments, landscape requirements, provisions for sidewalks and parking and pedestrian access and different categories of uses. So that's, they had a fairly large public hearing on that with a lot of public input. They continued the public hearing to next week, so if anybody else wants to participate, that public hearing will continue to their planning zoning regular scheduled meeting next week. And that's about it. Oh, and I guess the last part is they voted to end the moratorium for the housing development. So that moratorium is over. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much for that report. Does anyone else have another report? Councilor Paterno.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question for Councilor Kozakowski. Thanks for the report. I'm curious about the funding, or where the funds will be deposited for the affordable housing in lieu of regulation. So is it going to the general fund, and would the town manager and town council have access to that to support affordable housing units, or?
I'd have to defer to the town manager on that.
Not having a full 100% plan in front of me at this point, but I would guess it would most likely go to some type of a special revenue fund rather than go into the general fund.
Okay, but special revenue fund with access by you as the town manager and the town council, or strictly through the planning and zoning?
It would depend on how it's all put together, so.
Right.
Yeah, we would have
Okay.
to look at that.
All right, thank you.
I believe the intent of it would be to collect funds to support affordable housing in South Windsor in some way. That some way, I don't think has been defined yet, but I think since at any point now we could collect funds for that, we should probably
Yeah, I
work
could
on that.
imagine some type of process where maybe
Yeah.
there's a recommendation from planning and zoning that comes to myself that I then bring to you, and then
Right.
you guys would be the ultimate authority, because you do have the fiscal responsibility at the end of the day, so.
Right, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kubowski?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So they've got a list of proposals put together for the ending of the moratorium on the warehouses. I thought we were going to see some report or proposals regarding housing developments in town at the end of the moratorium for housing. Is this something we're gonna see, or did they not put anything together?
I didn't hear any conversation on that in the planning zoning meetings.
Okay, my concern is we've gone a year now with a housing moratorium, and yet we're gonna come out of it no different than we were going in. And the whole purpose of doing the moratorium for the 12 months was for them to re-examine the process and come to us with changes that they'd like to see. And it sounds like they may have dropped the ball on that one. Thank you.
So they did adopt new regulations in both the zoning regulations and the subdivision regulations to address affordable housing and the inclusionary zoning, and there's other provisions. Also, I failed to mention that they also kind of recreated the senior residential development regulations. They abolished those regulations in 2016, 17, something like that, where people or developers weren't allowed to do basically like the senior housing developments that we see all over town. But they revamped it and reinstituted that type of regulation too. But to what you said, I did not see or hear of any discussion about providing some sort of report to the council.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Evans?
Thank you. I just wanted to report that the Art Commission will hold its first meeting on April 18th. They are all very enthusiastic to get started, and some that have been waiting for quite some time are really excited about getting this started. I do have 2 names because the seats that remain would need to be appointed by the Republican Town Committee. I do have 2 individuals whose names I believe have been passed on, so I'm hoping we will see those on our agenda at a future meeting. And then just seeing the Wood and Mary Eder, our library director, in the council chambers, I just want to double check with our council clerk and make sure that we invite them to that meeting, because I believe on the ordinance it lists them as liaisons. So I think it's really important to have them be a part of that as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Evans. Counselor Paterna, could you give us a report on your energy meeting that you had on that Monday night? Your energy committee?
Yes.
We heard all about it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I want to hear the scoop on that, please.
Well, we changed the time on the clock, so I was kind of out of whack there, so. We did, unfortunately, that was a night where there was a storm threatening the whole day, whether it was going to be snow or not. But we had about 12 to 15 people here in the room. The presentation was excellent. Steve Lewis did a great job in explaining the ins and outs of what the federal government and what the state government is now proposing to help homeowners with, and it was strictly for homeowners at this point, the talk, to help homeowners with putting energy-saving equipment into their home and looking at the rebates available, the tax credits available. So I think he did a great job in explaining all those details. And he would like to do a couple of other smaller group sessions during the year between now and September, because probably by September, all those regulations are going to be a little more clearly defined by both state and federal government. So he wants to do a couple of things in small groups in the next couple of months.
And we can see this watch this on G Media? Was this recorded?
This was recorded. Actually, it was our great IT department surprised me, and it was actually live that evening, but it was then recorded, and then it is on the town website now, so people can view it anytime they want.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Counselor Paterna. And Counselor Kozakowski?
Yes, thank you. I just want to add that, so it would be available to be viewed on G Media and on YouTube, so you can find it there.
Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, for your reports. And moving on to item 10, reports from committees. Do we have any reports from committees? Not seeing any. Item 11, first reading, none. Second reading, none. Miscellaneous, none. 12, unfinished business, none. 13A, discussion item transfer of $5,300 from the contingency account to Human Service Administration professional account to cover mandated relocation expenditures. I'd like to welcome our staff from Human Services, Andrea Conference-Gesco, to please come up and talk to us about that. And your microphone is off there, so thank you.
Yes, this is something that's mandated. We are currently housing someone who was displaced by one of the fires at the condo complexes. and we have to do that as a town. So I had budgeted initially last year 10,000 and was only granted 5. So I'm short 5,300. So we need that money. We have to do this. We have to continue providing the support for this particular person.
Does anyone have any questions for Andrea? Not seeing it. Oh, Deputy Mayor King.
So can you, thank you for being here. Can you talk to us, a little bit more about that, especially in light of what you just said in terms of you asked for 10 grand and you only got 5? How does this all work?
Yes, so I had originally put it in my budget for 10,000 in anticipation of not really quite knowing if you need that money. And it didn't get, I think that the town manager had cut it because the thing with this is you might not need it. So it was an area to potentially cut, and then if you do need it, we have to do something like this and ask for it, and I just happen to need it, so I can go years without helping anybody. And then we helped one other person as well with this money.
If I could follow up?
Go ahead.
And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I guess I do. In terms of what are the qualifications, and the reason that I'm asking about this is, if I heard you correctly, you said that somebody had a fire situation and were obligated to help that family. Some things have popped up in my earshot in regards to certain businesses that have opened up in South Windsor, and unfortunately, employees that they brought over, they did not help to house them. And so they ended up losing a job and having to move back to wherever they came from. And so I'd like to understand a little bit more about how do we come up with who receives these human services finances?
Yeah, so typically the Red Cross will respond to a fire or other natural disaster and provide us with the names of people that might need assistance, or they'll pass, excuse me, on our information and they'll make a report to us. People just need to reach out to us. We don't necessarily know the people that have been displaced. Some people have insurance, they have another place to live. It's not necessarily everybody that needs assistance. It's just, you know, like the one person that we helped had renter's insurance. It covered, you know, housing at a hotel, but then it ran out. So then we stepped in to get them through the gap until the apartment became available. It's, you know, the other person just simply had no insurance, no funding. And we do, just to let you know, we lien the property. So we do get the money back, but we have to be able to upfront it.
I see. Okay, so all someone has to do to see if they fit, because the first thing I wrote down was emergency, but anything could be an emergency depending on the situation.
Well, it's not necessarily just anything. It's usually, it's a fire. It's if the town condemns someone's house because it's uninhabitable.
Okay.
You know, the town's responsible for finding housing for that person or providing temporary shelter until those, you know, provisions are made to fix the property or whatever. Sometimes it could be a hoarding situation that we have to, you know, it's been condemned and we have to get them, you know, in a hotel for a certain number of weeks until they can kind of clean up the situation. The situation with the fire, it's just much longer term because it was 8 units. It's just depending upon the situation. It could be like a flood or like a natural disaster or whatever, but, you know, again, not everybody needs our help.
Right. Okay, thank you. That's it.
And does the Red Cross also help?
They do like a couple nights in a hotel, and then they kind of shift them. They give them a voucher, but it's not long-term.
Right. Okay. Any other questions? Not seeing anything. Mr. Maniscalco.
I was just going to point out, I believe the statute actually, and I can't quote it off the top of my head, but I think it drives to the fact that people who find themselves in these emergency situations are finding themselves in those situations because they live in a home or in a property within the community already. And that home or property is usually used as collateral, more or less, for the town to recoup those funds afterwards. So the way the legislature put it together was that the town wouldn't be out those funds forever. We'd be able to recoup them in the event that somebody's there for a long term or out of their property for a long term. But basically, we're kind of a stopgap measure to help people figure out where they got to go, get back on their feet, and move forward with whatever's happened to their home.
Thank you, Andrea, for coming this evening. Thank you, Mr. Maniscalco. Forgive me just a minute. And do we have a resolution on our agenda for this
No, we only had it as a discussion item for tonight. We're going to bring a resolution forward at your next meeting.
at the next meeting? Okay, thank you, because that's what I was just looking for. I was like, wait, why didn't we? Okay, thank you. Because I didn't think we had it. I was very confused.
I do have one question.
Yes.
So, just so I'm clear, we are mandated by the state, under state statute, to do this, right?
So, yeah, so we are mandated to help people in this type of situation and
And
pay
this,
for
so this
it or-
falls under the state statutes that,
Correct.
that we're required to do this, okay?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Moving on to the next item is 13B. It's a discussion item, update on Veterans Memorial Park Tower and Emergency Communications Project. Fire Marshal Walter Summers, please.
Good evening, how are you?
Wonderful, how are you?
I'm doing great. One comment on the item before. I want to express how important it is to our residents to have insurance, especially to our renters in town. You don't know how many fires we go to where people who are renting a condo or an apartment do not have renter's insurance, which is very reasonably priced and would help out them in the end. I think the last fire, there was two, Andrea left, I think 2 out of the 8 did not have renter's insurance, and so they lost everything. So it's very important that our residents have maintained their insurance on that. So, thank you.
Thank you for that tidbit of information and guidance.
So tonight, I'm here to update you on the Emergency Communications Tower at VMP. I'd like to report that on February 27th, PD Channel 1 and 2 went live. And the next day, on February 28th, the Fire Department channel went live, and that tower is now fully operational. I know I get a lot of questions on when that large thing in the sky is going to come online, and it did come online at the end of February. Assistant Chief Brian Peck and Lieutenant Duchesne of the Police Department, we went out and we did a lot of radio testing in that area. And one of the hardest buildings to get out was DST, or they call it Broadbridge now, printing right there, 125 Ellington. We were able to get into the center of the warehouse, and all channels were loud and clear inside on a portable radio. We went down to WPCA on Bibbert, went in some of the buildings, and we had great coverage there. So we were impressed and overwhelmed with how that tower really covers that area. Tonight, I want to thank, and I'm going to go through a long list here of people who locally helped us out. No, not and and the people who work for the town who helped out on this project. First of all, former town manager Matt Galligan, who supported this project from the beginning. Our current town manager, Mike Maniscalco, who supports us every year in the budget. My boss, the assistant town manager and CIO, Scott Roberts, who supports my little efforts here also. The Capital Projects Committee, first Mayor Paterna first, and then now Mayor Liz Pendleton for supporting us every year as we put our projects up. The Town Council over many years for supporting the budget. And then on our town staff, we have Michelle Light, Town Planner, and Jeff Folger, our Wetlands Agent, who when we approached them about going up to that site, were great in guiding us through the wetlands procedure and how to get through planning and zoning on that. We had Jeff Doolittle, our Assistant Director of Public Works and Town Engineer, who assisted us with locating the tower and with the site design and construction. Vincent Stetson, Director of Public Works, and Marco, I'm not going to say that last name correctly. Marco, our Superintendent of Streets.
That works.
And the Public Works crew. They dug from the telephone pole on Pleasant Valley under the road and brought all 4 conduits up to the tower to provide all the utilities. We only had to buy the the pipe, and Vincent's crew and Marco's crews put it in, so kudos to the crew up there. Molly Keys, Director of Parks and Rec, and John Caldwell for assisting with the site and the fence contractor. Scott Yeomans and Gary Shack in the sign department. We had some signs that needed to be made up there. Fire Chief Kevin Cooney and Assistant Chief Brian Peck for providing support from the fire department side. Chief Lindstrom and Lieutenant Duchesne from the police department on working from moving their communication stuff on Ident Road all the way over to VMP, and the work that we had to do, over here at Sand Hill. Bruce Marcus from Marcus Communication, and his employee Chris Hack, who's a retired deputy chief from the South Windsor Fire Department, and all the employees who coordinated this whole project for us and watched out for the best interests of the town, because Chris is a local resident here. Fence One did the fence for us, local contractor. Eastern Communications from Bloomfield erected the tower for us. Electrical Contractors Incorporated, electrical wholesalers. Camilo Gavila, he's a structural engineer from South Windsor who provided us stamp drawings for it. As you can see, there are many, many people involved with this whole project and getting it done during a pandemic. The pandemic caused us numerous delays, increased costs, and he never knew when stuff was going to show up. It was quite a challenge, and I would like to personally thank everybody who worked and coordinated this project. Excuse me. Upgrading emergency communications in town has been an important multi-year project to improve and upgrading our existing emergency service and public works radios and coverage. The project is funded by monies provided by the Capital Projects Committee and the Town Council, starting in the 2018-2019 budget year. The first year funding was $220,000. That year, we upgraded the Public Works radio system from a low-band system to a high-band system, where for the first time, the Public Works office down on
Burgess?
Thank you. Burgess could talk to the actual truck on Avery Street. They couldn't talk over the ridge before. So now that radio system covers the whole town. We also replaced 2 antiquated repeaters for the fire department. They were located at Box Mountain and at Sand Hill. That was part of that project. The second year, we were funded $125,000. And in that year, we started the site and design work for VMP. And we added a listening post and transmitting post at the new Eli Terry School. So there was always a dead zone up by Top Zone. Obviously, you know, your cell phones don't work up there. So the Public Building Committee supported that effort, and now we have complete coverage up in that area for police and fire. This next year was a $400,000 to start VMP construction, and then this year, the funding of $125,000 has been used to finish VMP due to pandemic costs and add in a new DPW radio system up here at Sand Hill, which will increase our coverage in town. We also have ordered new fiber switches and network switches to update the antiquated ones at Box Mountain and Sand Hill and VMP. So everything will have a new fiber switch and IT equipment. And we are working now with design professionals on our site plan and wetlands plan for the planned tower down at Trax that'll cover the north end of town. So hopefully over the next fiscal year, we have a proposal for $400,000 in CIP. That funding will be used either to put that system at Trax, or depending on the cost, we can also add a site up at the old Orchard Hill School to cover the Benedict Drive area a little bit better. It all depends on funding. Future needs that we are looking at, we'll have to update the 10 police repeaters that are out there at the sites. They are original and they are about 10 to 12 years old. So in the future years, we'll be looking at that. And we also have a plan to provide a backup channel for EMS and emergency services. We have a second channel that we can activate. And other projects that we are working on, thanks to Assistant Town Manager Scott Roberts and Mike Maniscalco, we are able to reinvest Storm IESIS FEMA funding to improve radios. So over the next few months, you're going to see major work being done over at the Sand Hill Tower. We are replacing all the antennas and the wires from the antennas down to the shelter down below at about a cost of $50,000 as a great investment for that. And over at VMP, there is a possibility of third-party revenue over there. We have one interested customer that we are in preliminary talks with, so, which is good news for everybody. And that's about it on the update on emergency communications. Any questions?
Any questions from the council members for Fire Marshal Summers? I have one. Mr. Marcus? Here he is, yes, okay. I know that's not his name, I'm just saying. Okay, are we working on getting any Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, any of those cell phone folks on that tower down there?
So what Marcus Communication has done, is put it out to their local contacts, and it is out there in the field. I think when this other vendor applies to the siting council to put their equipment on, that'll probably even mark it out. So it is out there being looked at. I think Verizon usually takes 2 years, Chris says.
We all have budgets that they work on and rings. The louder the consumers yell.
Mr. Marcus, you got a pretty good voice. I can hear you from back. You can yell pretty loud.
The louder the consumer yells, the more interested the carriers get into reinforcing their coverage areas. If you notice these little antennas showing up on telephone poles that look like a World War II potato masher, that's their solution to fill an area before they can build a tower. Those are just 2,500 feet to 3,000 foot coverage for their carrier only. Usually it's Verizon or one of the others, but there are people interested. We let our people know that are doing the search rings that this tower is available, and they know it's there. So they don't have to build it, they will come. So you will see activity, and there'll be requests to go on it.
Good, that would be great. Thank you. Any other questions? Not seeing any? Thank you, Mr. Summers, for coming this evening.
You're welcome.
And thank you for the update on the tower.
You're
and
welcome.
I'm very pleased to hear that our fire department and the police department are all working and communicating and can hear everything down there. And what pleased me was to hear that you went into the middle of broadband and into the warehouse there in the center of it, and it was great. So
We did not expect that. We were pleasantly surprised. Very good, yeah.
Oh, that's real important when you're in interior fighting a fire and to even the police department, yes. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Moving on to Councilor Evans, discussion item amending the ordinance that created the Social Justice and Racial Equity Commission.
Thank you. So this is something we have discussed before. You'll also notice that there's some resignations on our agenda for this evening. Previously, the discussion was dropped because I felt, and the commission felt that it was important that they drive that decision. Well, now the commission has been put in a position where they can't meet once again because they can't meet a quorum. So in talking with the chair and vice chair, they can't vote on anything, they can't make any decisions for the commission. I'm presenting again to the council an amendment to the ordinance to change the membership to make this commission more viable. So you have examples of other memberships, just to kind of get an idea. You also have it's kind of in gray, what it currently stands as. And then also on the third page, you have what is proposed. The thought is to have it as a 9-member council, a 9-member commission with 2 alternates. No more than 5 regular members may be of the same political party. They would be 2-year terms, and they would alternate with the 5-year 5 and 4 and the 1-and-1 alternates. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but if anyone had any questions or discussion or thoughts how else to change it. I did notice that in A, the third word is with, and that should be will.
Does anyone have any questions for Counselor Evans concerning the changes? Not seeing any, oh, go ahead, Counselor Kozakowski.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councilor Evans, for bringing this forward. I am very much in favor of changing the requirements for filling these positions. The current language talks about specific political parties, and the proposal doesn't, so that's good. I like that. If the problem of meeting quorum, it's been a problem for almost the whole period of this commission being in existence. Maybe moving to a 7-member.
It was 8 previously.
It was 8 before, couldn't fill seats, so you want to make it 9?
9 with 2 alternates.
Okay.
So it will be 9 people can be seated with 2 alternates to help fill the quorum if needed.
Okay. I think even under the current requirements, there's hasn't been a whole lot of interest in filling these positions. So creating more to make a quorum just, it seems a little counterintuitive. So maybe making the commission a little smaller will have a smaller quorum requirement, members to make a quorum. So with maybe a 7-member with 2 alternates could have a quorum, needing 4 for a quorum, and the work of this commission could move forward. So that could be a suggestion.
Counselor Evans?
Yep, so not opposed to that. I think that's a great idea. I do just want to point out that in my opinion and experience, I don't think that there is a lack of interest. I think there is a failure to appoint from one side and not the other, as we saw. So in my opinion, by doing this, it gives us a little bit more flexibility with putting people in these positions to get it going. If a 7-2, is more, this actually wouldn't change that it would need a 5-person quorum. From the 8, you needed 5. From the 9, you need 5. So it gives you a little bit more. It gives you 11 people versus the 8. So it adds 3 more people that could help meet that quorum.
Okay, so at the end of tonight, there's going to be 2 left. So we're talking about filling 9 seats. So just something to consider. The rest of the terms I'd be fine with supporting, with the exception of D, where it says if there's a vacancy, such member shall be of the same political party of the vacating member. I don't think we need this type of requirement, as long as you don't have the supermajority of more than 5 per political party. I think anybody that's willing and wanting to volunteer to this commission should be welcome, and not necessarily to a single party. They shouldn't be left out because of their political orientation. So if somebody wants to volunteer, they should have that opportunity too.
I need to recess this conversation just for a second because we need to go into a public hearing at 8 o'clock, please. So the regular council meeting is just recessed for the public hearing. This discussion item. So we have a public hearing to be held at 8 o'clock to receive citizens' input on the appropriations of $75,000 from the capital non-reoccurring fund account to the Wood Memorial Library Museum steep grant account for the HVAC upgrades. Clerk of the Council, Poma, please.
To be published in the Journal-Inquirer, March 9th, 2023. Legal ad, Town of South Windsor. Notice is hereby given that the South Windsor Town Council has set Monday, March 20th, 2023 at 8 p.m. in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall, 1540 Sullivan Avenue, South Windsor, Connecticut, as the time and place for a public hearing to receive citizen input on the appropriation of $75,000 from the capital non-recurring account to the Wood Memorial Library HVAC upgrades steep grant account project, dated at South Windsor, Connecticut, this 9th day of March 2023, attested to by Amanda Poma.
Thank you, Ms. Poma. And is there anyone here that would like to speak in our public hearing concerning the $75,000 to Wood Memorial Library for the HVAC system? Please come forward. And there's a little button right there at the bottom of at the base of the microphone that would turn it on for you. There, perfect. You're on.
Hi. This is a letter to Mayor Pendleton and the members of the South Windsor Town Council. Wood Library has been a key town asset and a cultural treasure for South Windsor for nearly 100 years. And during my 45 years of residency, I've been proud to support the Wood as a board member, a volunteer, Gingerbread House Festival coordinator, grant writer, golfer, visitor, and general fan of all things Wood. I know what the library means to its visitors and volunteers. I've witnessed firsthand the blood, sweat, and tears involved in funding the Woods programs and paying for its rising operating costs. It's an annual challenge, and emergency repairs and capital projects, the kind facing a 97-year-old building, require extra funding through grants, personal donations, and town support. Wood Library may well be the only remaining library in the state which does not have a functioning humidity-controlled HVAC system. The state, through its DECD Urban Act grant, has generously awarded the library $149,000 to address this shortcoming, granting the funds to the town for administration on the library's behalf. The project now needs an additional $75,000 to meet its objectives for this project. Town and library staff have already invested literally hundreds of hours into realizing this dream of installing climate control in an historically significant structure. Once complete, it will benefit visitors, volunteers, and staff, and allow the library to expand its operating hours in the warmer months. Even more importantly, it will preserve and protect its extensive collections. I urge you to approve the appropriation of $75,000 to complete Wood Library's HVAC project, and I applaud the council for recognizing the Wood as a significant historic, architectural, and cultural resource for the people of South Windsor and the state of Connecticut. Thank you.
In your name, please.
Kathy Kerrigan,
Thank you.
1838 Main Street. I'll leave the letter.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak to the public, or speak to the council in our public hearing here?
A number of us, three, spoke to this issue during the general hearing process. So I just thank you for hearing me before. I'll just submit my letter to the clerk. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in the public hearing? Anyone else from the public like to speak in the public hearing? Sorry. I did. That's because I pointed the finger and I said,
Hi, I'm Jane Goodwin Robinson. I moved on to Main Street in 1963 and been there most of the time on and off, but I do own the home I grew up in now and love being there. I used to walk to the library to check out books with my mom at the age of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I think 13 is when it closed in the early 70s, but yeah, my mom and Bunny and Shirley Peterson helped start the Friends of Wood Memorial Library because my mom was like, this is not happening, that we're not shutting this building down. So anyway, and now I'm on the board at Wood, and it's a beautiful building, as we all know. And for our employees and obviously visitors and for all the treasures that are in that building, it needs to be, it needs to be acclimated to the weather. So for that reason, I'm in support of the allocation of $75,000 to Wood Memorial Library. Thank you.
thank you. Is there anyone else from the public?
Did I say 588 Main? I don't know if I.
You're good. We got you, Jane. We'll find you.
Hi, I'm Janet Wade Ute of 482 Main Street. I'm a newcomer relatively. I've only been here 22 years, but in my 22 years, I've gotten to know the Wood well by volunteering, being a part of the activities. And one of the things that I have come to appreciate, in addition to all of the outreach that the Wood does, is the amazing collection of history and artifacts that they have that need to be preserved. And living in an uncentrally air-conditioned house myself, I can speak to the importance of really doing this not only to increase the programming that the Wood is capable of doing in the summertime, but really to protect the artifacts that are about the town, about Native American history, about so many things that are important to preserve. And I just would thank you for considering this and hope that it will receive your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to speak in the public hearing concerning the Wood Memorial Library? Going once. Anyone else would like to speak to the council from the public? Twice, 3 times. Is there anyone else that would like to speak in the public hearing? Not seeing anyone, we're going to be closing the public hearing here, and after we do, could we do a straw vote, please, on all those in favor of the $75,000 for Wood Memorial Library? Please raise your hand. It's a non-scientific, non-official vote. Just asking. Don't worry, just asking. Let's see, keep your hands up. Let's count. 1, 2, 3. No, you can't raise 2 hands. I caught that. Thank you. And any no's? Not seeing any. Ms. Palmer, did you do a count? And what'd you get? 14? I got 11, but that's okay. We'll go with your 14. Somebody cheated with 2 hands. I caught him in the back there, but that's all right. Okay, thank you everyone for coming this evening, and we will take your words into consideration when this resolution comes forward. Now I'd like to resume back to the regular council meeting in our discussion item between Councilor Kozakowski and Councilor Evans, please.
I'm just going to respond to what Councilor Kozakowski was saying about item D with the new proposed change in ordinance. When I sent it to the town attorney, I did not include that language. He added that in. So I am not opposed to removing it. So unless there is some glaring reason that the attorney feels like it needs to be in there, I think it's fine to remove it.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to have, maybe we can get some clarification from the town attorney why that's there, but that's great. I do have some other comments on just the entire ordinance of itself. I'm not going to waste time in this meeting since it's not part of the proposal, but maybe can we have a meeting, at least Councilor Evans and maybe the town manager, to kind of go over a couple things just to address some concerns?
I think, so the hope is that at next meeting, we would have a public hearing to review the change in ordinance. So I think, I could be incorrect, but that now would be an appropriate time to make any other changes if you wanted to suggest some.
Well, I don't have, so I guess I can express my concerns. I don't know if I have solutions to them. That's why I kind of wanted to have a discussion first. But if you want to go at it, that's fine.
Madam Mayor?
Yes. That's entertain a discussion on the social justice ordinance at this time?
Well,
because he wants to express his concerns, or no? What would you like? Councilor Paterno.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just thinking that if Councilor Kozakowski has some suggestions and wanted to meet with Councilor Evans and the town manager, kind of review it, we can still have that language before the public hearing is set. So we're not losing time if we do it that way. That's okay. So
Have the language be sent to us via email?
Right.
Okay, that's a suggestion.
Okay.
Councilor Gamble.
I was going to suggest that this is more of a discussion, and you normally go through your wordsmithing when we have a resolution in front of us that you want to make friendly amendments to, and I don't think this is that kind of situation. I agree that some sort of meeting before we, get together and put it to a public hearing. So I don't know if this is the right forum for that, but
Right.
it's not my.
Right. Deputy Mayor King.
It has nothing to do with that. So.
Okay. Okay. So, okay, I know, the other discussion. Well, my suggestion would be, yes, this evening, the discussion item that's on our agenda this evening was about the membership. So that's what we should stick to and have discussions with. And that way we can get through this. And then you can also, if you have concerns, because it would be coming back for an amended, a change to the ordinance, amend the ordinance, have a conversation with Councilor Evans, Mr. Maniscalco, whatever you need to do, and have those suggestions sent off to us prior to the next meeting. And the next meeting, it is, like Councilor Gamble has says, when that resolution comes up to change the ordinance, we can have in discussion at that time any suggested changes that may come forward. Does that work for you, Councilor Evans?
Sure, I will, it does say amending the ordinance, it doesn't focus on membership, it shows my suggestions for changes. So I think we are open to have the discussion now.
Oh, I'm
if we
sorry,
wanted to.
amending the
But I'm fine with holding off and having that discussion between now and the next meeting, as long as we can move ahead with the process.
Oh, yeah, not holding up the process, just submit your suggestions. Okay, is that acceptable?
The other thing, based on your suggestion of the 7 versus the 9, I mean, I am one of 9, so I'm not curious. I'm curious to see what others feel on that, to see if that is something we would want to change to 7 versus 9.
Maybe all of us can email you or work with that and give you our comments on that.
Yep.
Okay, that works for you. Now, Deputy Mayor King.
Yeah, the only question, thank you, Madam Mayor, that I had, it was a couple, but in regards to the membership diminishing or the count, and I'm not sure how this falls. One of the things that it says under section 2-7458 on the first page just talks about how the commission shall establish its own rules and procedures for the conduct of its business, and it does have to do with the membership. Is it a problem with this commission? Do they always have to meet face-to-face? And I asked that question because when we first did this, or even, shoot, I'd say before the pandemic, everybody was like, oh, no, technology. And now we do Zoom meetings like they're going out of style. Kids do them for class. I mean, now we don't even have snow days. I know my son is pissed off because, now everything is, on Google Meet. So my question is, can we move in a certain direction and say we're going to kind of go with technology? And I wonder if it was the lack of that we had people fall off because they have so many things going on in their life that they can't even show up to a meeting face-to-face. However, they could if it was Zoom. And I don't know if this is the appropriate, because again, it says the commission shall establish its own rules. So is that us? Or can the commission, when they get together, say, hey, you know what? If we want to have a Zoom meeting, we can have a Zoom meeting.
So I will say one of the members that resigned, I do believe that is probably the main reason. She literally could only meet on a Monday night. When the commission had to be moved to a Tuesday because of, I think it was President's Day, she could not meet, so the commission could not meet. She had a very, very full schedule. She was young, enthusiastic, and I think that her schedule was too full, and perhaps having a Zoom may have. This is probably not a me question, this is a town manager question ultimately. Okay. I do know also there's another commission that I'm liaison for, the Human Relations Commission, that they have 2 members that for medical reasons cannot come to meetings in person. So that commission has to have 5 members in person, and then those 2 members will call in because the quorum has to be in person. So for that one as well, it would be helpful if they could have a Zoom or a virtual meeting. But I think ultimately that lies with our town manager at this point because it's something he and I actually have discussed previously.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I think at this point, we're all aware of, what it was to do virtual meetings and then hybrid meetings and how all that worked. With the end of the pandemic and a lot of the executive orders that had been put in place, that's kind of moved beyond that, although I do believe the legislature passed some things that allow for some virtual meetings or hybrid meetings to occur. That being said, I don't believe you can make a quorum with people attending virtually. Similar to like if someone were to attend by phone, they can attend the meeting, but yet they can't make the actual quorum by attending via phone.
So follow-up then, is that something that we can change? I mean, that's not
No, that's
a state or federal
that's a
mandate, is it?
Yeah, that's a state statute. So.
Sorry, take that off the record.
It's okay. The other thing just to be aware of, I know somebody mentioned sending emails to one of the counselors with their thoughts. That would constitute an illegal meeting as well. So, yeah, but their opinion would, if you were all to send an email to Counselor Evans saying, you know, I want the town color to be purple, then that would then constitute an illegal meeting.
So we're going to send our information, our answers, our questions, our 7 or 9 to the clerk of the council, who will then gather the information of all of us counselors and submit it to Counselor Evans.
We could do that, although I would suggest that if there was going to be some kind of discussion about it or a desire to discuss all those comments, it needs to happen in an open forum like this.
Oh, correct, but it was just a question of the 7 or the 9, and then what was
That could
your...
be, I guess that could be sent into the clerk of the council and then brought to the next meeting.
Correct.
Yeah.
So then does it make sense to have that conversation now?
I guess it does.
To do what? Sorry.
Have the conversation now, since we can't share the information via clerk of the council. Counselor Kozakowski?
You want me to go through them now?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you, Madam
And
Mayor.
even if you dislike something or you want to change something, that doesn't mean you have to come up with a solution.
No, I understand.
Someone else might have a solution, because I heard you say that earlier.
Yeah, okay, so, thank you. So looking at section 2-460 duties of the Social Justice and Racial Equity Commission. A, reading verbatim, working with town staff to ensure effective anti-racist and anti-bias training is offered for every town employee and elected official on an annual basis of at least 2 hours with a goal of 12 hours minimum. Okay, my questions and concerns about that. We have a new commission that seems to have direct access to staff to have some sort of, for some sort of, or encourage some sort of training when us as a counselor don't necessarily have access to the staff. We have to do our communication through the town manager. So I think there might be a disconnect there. And I don't know if we need a commission to recommend training in anti-racist, anti-bias training, which DEI training, if I can summarize. We can just direct the town manager to put on some sort of program, and if we need to fund it, we can fund it. So we as a council can direct the town manager to engage in those activities. We don't need a separate commission to do so. Training on an annual basis, that's fine, at least 2 hours, that's fine. 12 hours is a lot. I myself am a municipal employee for a different municipality. I went through DEI training with my municipality. I thought it was a great experience. It was a 4-hour workshop. One 4-hour workshop was enough for a year, if not my duration of employment. So 12 hours is unattainable, and that training is expensive. We don't need that much. Our staff doesn't need that much. Do we want to discuss, or do you want me to keep going? B, reading verbatim. take action to investigate and promote policy changes that address REEG bias and disparity to create a more inclusive community. My question is, what policies are they reviewing? And under what lens and what expertise would a volunteer commission have on any sort of policy documents that might have very legal implications on the administering of those policies and assessing any type of violation of such. I think that type of review is a very, very legal review, and it needs to be through a lens of the legal implications of any sort of recommendations. Deputy Mayor, should I keep going, or do you want to discuss? Okay, C, collaborate with town staff to search and utilize specified avenues focused on recruitment of BIPOC candidates for government opportunities. If I understand this right, I think we as a council can direct the town manager to direct the HR director to make sure that proper avenues, proper, that there's best practices in this type of searching for candidates for government opportunities, town employees. We don't need a commission to do that when we can direct, it can come from us. I think that work is important, but it can be done without waiting for a commission with 2 members trying to fill it with, at least 3 more to make those recommendations. Moving on, D, drive occurrence of training sessions, community conversations, reading lists, and forums through a variety of media for all of South Windsor residents, specifically targeted to bring about awareness of the following: critical self-reflection on racism, existing historic inequities facing those of REEG diversity, and actions of advocacy to fight REEG injustice. Okay, finally, we come out of the 4 already there. Finally, we have a good charge of what this commission would be doing. So I think having this type of outreach is probably the critical and most important part of this type of activity. I don't know how this is different from what the charges are of the Human Relations Commission, but this is, I think this is important work. So I applaud that. And E, ensure that town government and police department continually improve upon policies and procedures that eliminate racism, bias, and profiling interactions in the hiring process, increase diversity of employment through recruitment and hiring, develop a system of open and transparent communication between town employees and citizens to create dialogue regarding REEG disparity within our community. Again, I don't think we need a commission to tell our hiring agents to, find ways to increase diversity of employment. I think this is something that we as a council can direct the town manager to direct the director of HR. And I'm sure they're already doing that. I mean, they haven't been working in a vacuum. This type of new lens is something that's been around for a long time, kind of re-upped in the past few years, and I think we don't need another commission to do those things that should already be done, probably have been doing, and we don't have to wait for a directive when we can do it as a council now to direct the town manager. And then lastly, report annually to the town council and community the results and outcomes of the commission's work. Okay, that's fine. Getting regular updates from this commission, as well as every other commission, I think that is good practice, so I encourage that. So those are my concerns. That's probably why, I recommended having a separate meeting, because I think some of these could be addressed with the town manager or the town attorney. But if this is the forum to do so, then so be it.
Thank you. Councilor Evans?
Without going through each individual piece, this was attorney reviewed before it was passed initially. Ultimately, this commission does not cannot make a lot of these changes. What they would need to do, there are liaisons from the town staff, from the police department, that are there and hearing and listening and working with this commission. This commission also reports to the council, who would then in turn, in some instances, need to really make those recommendations or things to the council. I think unless the town is looking to hire a DEI staff, I think the work of this commission is important to continue to look at how our town is holding itself accountable with what this commission's work would do.
Okay.
Many here were involved when we passed this. Councilor Leidecker was on the subcommittee when we came forward with this commission and ordinance as well. So, I think that this was something that really was driven out of a community driving force was behind this that led to the conversations and the creation of this through the Black Lives Matter subcommittee under Mayor Paterna. And I think it's something we all felt really strongly about, and we wanted to make sure that our community was really held accountable to be welcoming for all. And the Human Relations Commission does wonderful work. They hold events and they make the community feel welcome at these events. They celebrate different diversities, but this work is very different. And already with the 2 meetings that we've had, I will say that the conversations that have come from the town and from the police staff have been very open, receptive, welcoming, and enlightening, I think, on both sides. For the town, the police to hear, as well as or the Board of Ed was there as well, to hear some of the conversations. And I don't think it ever hurts us to have these conversations and to continue to try to better ourselves. So.
Councilor Leidecker?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would probably make a recommendation that the clerk of the council pull the discussions that we had with regards to how we got to this ordinance. There was a lot of hours expended between Councilor Evans, former Councilor Snyder, former Councilor Maneely, and myself, and we created this from the Black Lives Matter subcommittee, countless hours. I think the goal here and the underlying hope was that this committee would not be interfacing with town staff, would not be directing the town manager, but instead had additional resources and expertise to research things that our town staff did not have the time on their plate to be researching. It's one thing to direct our town manager, please put a diversity plan into place. Please find some, diversity trainings. He's gonna look at us and say, where, how, with what time, who do you want me to expend on that? And I think this commission had the ideas and the support to do some of that and bring it back to the town council so we could then try and see what was possible to implement. We discussed extensively the amount of hours for the trainings, going up to the 12 hours with the 2 hours minimum, but I think this really was driven by some of the racism that we were seeing in the town and we were hearing from our citizens in the town that a lot of us were not aware of and were not privy to. And we really wanted to empower this commission to come back to us with ideas, with trainings, with alternative hiring practices and locations and places that we could bring back to the town as a whole to see what could and could not be implemented. So it really may be beneficial for all of us to kind of refresh, all of those hours of discussions through the clerk of the council notes, as well as maybe some of the subcommittee notes that really went into the drafting of this. And I think that would give you some of the additional flavor as to what the purpose was behind this and how we got to where we are. So if the clerk of the council could do that for all of us. Thank you.
Councilor Kozakowski?
Okay, no, thank you for that clarification. The good thing is, it's been 2 years since this was adopted. The bad thing is, I don't think any training has been done, but I can tell you that I did training through my employer. I've done training through various volunteer organizations that I'm part of. If you need a list of recommendations, I can make a couple phone calls and have it to you by noon tomorrow. So we don't need to, those things can move forward because we've had, other towns, other organizations have had 2 years to work on this. So we can pool our resources and our contacts and come up with a list. And I think the town manager has something to say.
Yeah, I would just follow that up with, we have been doing diversity, equity, inclusivity training for all our staff prior to even putting the ordinance in place. Once, a lot of the activities that occurred driven by the Black Lives Matters movement, as well as some of the issues that had happened with students at the Board of Education, as well as within the community, we felt it was important to make sure our staff were aware and ready to address those issues when they would occur. So we've been doing those trainings from the beginning.
So may I make a suggestion then? Oh, go ahead. Who? What?
Sorry, I thought Councilor Paterno had turned his light on. I just want to say, in the conversations we've had, we have learned, that there have been trainings as well. I was aware regardless that they were happening. And I think it just goes to show that, like you're saying, you and your town have resources and things like that, but why can't a commission do those research and do those things? Like, I appreciate that you as a counselor sitting here have those resources, but that doesn't always mean council members have those resources. That doesn't always exist. So I appreciate your background, your skill, your work experience, but that doesn't mean you'll always be here. And it doesn't mean you'll always have those to offer to our town. So I think it's important we have a commission that is going to be long-standing and that's going to be able to continue this work for the long term. I'll also say that at the Black Lives Matter subcommittee, we had individuals speak about their personal experiences in town. It was stunning, their experiences. I will say that we are a very white council. We have 2 members on this council that are of diversity, are of a minority. And I think we don't all see or experience the things that happen in this town. The number of doors that I knocked on, the number of families I heard from that are experiencing racism in the schools, in stores, everywhere. It's happening here in South Windsor. And if we as a town, in our town building, can't hold ourselves accountable for that, then who are we to say that our town is welcoming? And that's where this comes from. Hold our town just as responsible as we want to see our community. Set the example first. And I think unless we're looking to hire a diversity equity staff member to come and work in this town like the school has, then I think we need this commission to come to us and say, this is what we've learned, this is what we need.
Thank you. So you, Councilor Evans, you asked the question, why can't a commission do these things? And I think you're right, a commission could do these things, but the fact is, we've had this commission for almost 2 years now. You've had 2 meetings. The commission has had 2 meetings, and there's work that is getting done without their recommendations, and there's some work that needs to get done that if we have to wait until a commission gets filled enough to make a quorum, then, you know, there's missed opportunities. So all I'm thinking is maybe there's an opportunity to kind of rethink this and making sure that the purpose and the intent and the goals of this commission are being met, maybe in a different form. Not saying I know what that form is, but maybe there's opportunity to fix something that just seems to not have been really working.
Councilor Evans.
I think I've said this a number of times. Truly, this commission has not been able to meet because the Republican Town Committee will not appoint people to this commission. I've said it in a lot nicer ways, but the fact of the matter is they're not putting people on this commission. And that is why this commission has not been able to meet. I can tell you a number of people who are willing to serve on this commission, but I can't put them on there, you can't put them on there, because they are held up by the Republican Town Committee. So until we make these changes, we're not going to see people on that commission.
Deputy Mayor King.
Well, I appreciate the conversation, the dialogue going back and forth. As an African-American member of this council and of this community, I don't want us to lose focus. This should not be, while it can be, because that's just how politics works. We see it every town council meeting. Every time I think we're gonna have a short meeting, never seems to happen. I don't know, I thought this was gonna be the shortest meeting known to man. And yet, we find ways to, whether it's town members or social media or whatever, we get riled up, and I don't want to lose focus on the fact that a lot of these committees, commissions are set up because of a voice that has not been heard otherwise, that does not want to be concerned about being politicized, or more importantly and significantly, does not want to be held accountable in an adverse way whereby they might lose their job, whereby somebody might show up at their house, whereby somebody may bully their children. And so if you have a commission or a committee that's set up, and they do this in corporations and so on and so forth, and we can be honest, a lot of this was set up in response to a lot of the murders that were going on, especially against people of color throughout our country. However, I do agree with the distinguished gentleman to my right in the sense that we have had this for 2 years, but I also think that we do need to respect Councilor Lydecker and Councilor Evans' time that they have put into this even before all of us, really. And again, I just want to stress that this should not be a political issue, as it unfortunately, for various reasons which we're all aware of, we just don't speak on it, we should not focus on that. The last thing that I would want to have happen in anybody's household is for them to go through a situation in life whereby no one is listening to my needs. We have, and just because I still see people here, we have, the Wood Memorial Library. That was set up, at least from my history and hearing and learning and driving down there, because people said, this is important to us. It may not have been important to me, I was in Philly. But at that time, and the young lady's not here anymore, she said 1963, that was important. And now, I'll be 50 this year, so 50 plus whatever that is, I'm not a math whiz, years later, we're still talking about it and saying it's still important to our town. And I think that we're at a very pivotal point, which again, I don't want to focus on the politics of this, whereby we get it right, but we have had people that have put time and energy into it. So I think again, agreeing with the distinguished gentleman to my right, but also with Councilor Lydecker, that we do get those. because there were conversations that were had long before I became part of this town, and maybe Cesar can speak to it as well, but I'm not putting him on the spot at all, because that's usually what happens, talk to the people of color. And it's like, you know what? At a certain point, do what's right. Not about politics. Just do what's right. And I think that this is right because, again, and I really want to make this clear, because 90 to 99% of the time, when people want to speak on these types of issues and they work for X, Y, Z, whatever, there are repercussions. And I believe that that was the spirit in which this commission was put together, so that there would not be those repercussions. You have not only the liaisons from the town and the cops and so on and so forth, but also you have people from the community that can say, wow, I didn't realize this was going on, we need to do something about it, and then they bring it to us, and then we go from there. I don't want to belabor the point, but again, I really just want to stress that I think we had people that we need to respect that put this thing in place, and that did take the time and the energy for the appropriate reasons. We just need to get it done, get it moving, and put the right people in place so that our town can be a safe place for everyone to live, but at the same time for everyone to be able to express their thoughts and their opinions without any, bluntly, negative retribution, whether that's on social media, whether that's through public hearing, public opinion, whatever. We should all be free to say how we feel without worrying about how is this going to come back to me. And I believe that that was the purpose of this commission, that it be set up this way. But again, I think that we have to make sure that we're not duplicating duties. And at that point, that's all I wanted to say about this, because I could go on and on about it. But at the end of the day, I think it's the right thing to do. We just need to do what's right, but at the same time, make sure that when we put everything in place, that we can just keep it moving. So I agree again with Councilor Lydecker. If you can send all of that stuff to us, Amanda, that would be awesome. And then we can have, dare I say it, a final discussion, then make a final decision, and then keep it moving. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilor Gamble.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for saying that. It was very well said. I don't want to get, I just want to get it right also. I don't want this to become political. It should not be political. I don't, whatever happened, I don't understand where we got to this point, but I think we have an opportunity to fix it. I like the suggestion of 7. I think that makes more sense. If at that point, it just would be easier. I like most of your ideas around getting to the numbers, but I don't want to politicize this. It does not want or need that kind of action. So that's my 2 cents, and I'll keep.
Thank you, Councilor Gamble. Your light's still on, hon.
Yes, it is.
Any other comments? Well, I like the open, oh, what? Yes, Councilor Paterno.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Deputy Mayor King, for your statement also. Thank you, Councilor Kozakowski and Councilor Gamble, for your feedback. I think it's important. I want us to remember that I want us to respect what Councilor Evans, Councilor Lydecker, former Councilor Snyder, and former Councilor Meneely, the hours of work that they put in interviewing many, many residents in this town. And what they heard, and I would agree with Councilor Evans, what they heard was very surprising in many cases. So the other issue for me is this commission, when created, will give some resident in this town a chance to go in and talk to that group and say, I haven't been heard in XYZ place in this town, and I'm experiencing these issues. What can you do to support me? That's the other value I see in this kind of a commission. So thank you, and I want to support. I can see we can make some minor changes, but I think we should move on and get this done. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? I would just like to piggyback on what Deputy Mayor King said on negative retribution on social media or wherever it may be. I welcome this open conversation that we had here this evening. I welcome the suggestions of changes. I welcome the support. I welcome the reminder of the hard work that was put into this to originate this. And I welcome open conversations about change or about making it better. And that's what I don't want to see is negative retribution or any negative comments in social media concerning this open discussion. We've done very good here tonight, very well, with speaking with each other, being honest, being open, being fair, and being respectful. And I would just hope that the public can see that, and I hope that they don't take this and twist any words or turn it into ugly on social media, because we all are trying to do a very good thing here, and we're trying to work well together and come up with a good solution. I also thank Councilor Evans and Councilor Leidecker and Councilor Snyder and Councilor Manili for the hard work that they did with all of this and bringing up those documents from those meetings and the heavy discussions and the long discussions that we had in the past. I welcome that for everyone to become educated on this before any other suggestions are made. So my recommendation would be that we gather that information, we come back for a discussion at our next meeting on this, look at any of the possible changes that may take place. We may, and then we have to refer it off to the town attorney. We may have to go to our second meeting in April for a public hearing and to change the ordinance. Does that sound acceptable, Councilor Evans?
That's what has to be done, sure.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll be moving on. Thank you for that. So now we have the general government budget, Mr. Maniscalco. We're doing a whole PowerPoint. Do we need our books?
Yes, we're going to be doing a PowerPoint for.
Do we need our books
You
with
won't
us?
need your book for this,
All right.
no.
I'm going to go sit back there so I can see.
See if we can get this warmed up here and we'll be good to go. All right. Well, let me start by saying thank you for all of you as we kick off this year's budget process and this year's budget moving forward. This is really the beginning of the whole process and everything, so, you know, hopefully we'll have lots more conversations going forward. We're going to have lots of presentations from different departments specifically on their budgets. Just as a little administrative note, I know that you all got your budget books today. Within the budget book, there is no documents related to the Special Revenue Fund for the Parks and Rec Department. That'll be coming in about a week or two. It's just the Finance Department got a little behind and they weren't able to print them out yet. So it's on its way for all of you, and you should have it before the actual presentation from Parks and Rec. So let's talk about, maybe not talk about. Turn it on, that helps. There we go. All right, so the budget process that we typically go through in the town of South Windsor, in December timeframe, the town council, all of you, pass a budget policy statement. The town staff kind of boil that statement down. These are the 10 topics of that budget policy statement that we kind of boiled it down to for all of you to see. We're not going to read through all 10 of them tonight, but this is kind of the guide that all of you give to myself and the town staff as we look at putting our budget together. From there, I take your budget policy statement and then I put together a set of guidelines that I provide to the staff in a memo. The very first bullet point in those guidelines is follow the budget policy statement. It's very simple. Additionally, I typically tell them no new positions or programs unless quantitative data or town council budget policy supports those positions. They have to justify their current request versus a 5-year historical average. For those of you who've worked with me on budget in the past, you know that I take the 5-year historical data as to actual expenditures, and we compare those actual expenditures to what are being requested, and from there we come up with what my budget proposal is to all of you, so you could kind of gain a little bit of understanding of that process. Additionally, I direct all of my department heads to follow all of our collective bargaining agreements for their salary increases. We also try to highlight innovative or extraordinary accomplishments that town staff have accomplished or departments have accomplished throughout the year. And then lastly, link our department goals to the strategic plan that's currently in place. So this year's budget's a little bit different than previous years. And unfortunately, due to the economic climate, the challenges that we're facing, we have a number of headwinds. as we go into the budget process this year. I think we've all heard about inflation. Our town, very similar to many other municipalities across the state, has faced a pretty large employee retention challenge. At one point over the last year, we actually had a couple complete departments leave to go to other towns to make more money in other places. So we are competing for employees that are very far and few between. Part of that's because the state of Connecticut has actually not been training a lot of employees that need licenses and requirements through the pandemic. So now there's a shortage. Additionally, a couple things that we did know that have come up but still act as kind of headwinds and churn the ocean of our budget up a little bit is revaluation. So we know that comes every 5 years, but it makes things a little different this year. And then lastly, state aid. We know that's been a serious headwind for us over the last probably 5 or more years, maybe even 10 to be honest, where we've seen the state of Connecticut is reducing aid that's going to municipalities on an annual basis year over year. So this year's budget, my proposed budget is $145,788,278, which is an 8.84% increase. This pie will show you where those increases are. So as you can see, as we all know from the Board of Ed conversation and proposals that they brought forward, my budget includes the 7.95% increase from the Board of Ed. Board of Ed debt, which is associated with our schools, is at 16.9% of the total budget. Town operating budget is at 5.05% increase. Town debt is at 10.9% increase. And then capital is at a 77.78% increase, and we will talk about that in a little while. So this chart kind of shows you the process that I go through as I create the budget that I'm proposing to all of you tonight. So the green bars across the top show the department proposals that have come to all of you, and we've broken it down into kind of 4 major buckets for our town budget: town operations, debt, capital, and education. So as you can see, the request for town operations, I reduced that by $640,000. Debt, we were able to actually reduce that this year by $110,000. Typically, we never reduce our debt payments because those are an obligation that we're required to do. But this year, because we were able to do some refinancing, I think all of you remember passing that resolution. Those are the actual savings that we're realizing through that refinancing activity. And then lastly, I did reduce the proposed capital budget from 4.3 down to $4 million. So there was a $300,000 reduction there. And then as is with previous years, I do not touch the education budget because that's not within my purview. So this is just another way to kind of look at the overall budget by major category, kind of more or less breaking down some of the general government side to show you where that money is being spent, so you can see the different pieces of the pie and how that makes up our general government budget. One of the good things that I like to do every year is take a 10-year look back and see where were we 10 years ago to today. So looking back 10 years ago to today, as you can see, education was 65% of the pie, now it's 61%. If you look at education debt was 1% of the pie, now it's 5%. As you can see, capital and transfers were 1%, now they're 3%. Town operations was 29%, now it's 27%, and town debt has stayed at 4%. Now, I think as everybody always asks, how do you spend my money? I think that's always a key thing for a lot of our residents. How is my dollar being spent, and where does it go? So as you can see, for every dollar that we take in, 61 cents, or 61% of it, goes to education. 5 cents goes to the Board of Education. Debt, 3 cents goes to capital and transfers. 4% goes to town debt, and then 27 cents goes to town operations. So overall, the change in the budget comes out to $11,839,710. And how is that allocated amongst kind of those big buckets within our budget? So 6.497 goes to education. So 6,497,000 goes to the education department. Town operations gets $1.9 million. Capital is an additional 1.7. debt for the Board of Education, which really comes out to, it really means debt for our schools that we've built is about $1 million, and then debt to the town for town operations is $622,000. One of the things in our budget policy statement this year, there were some requests for personnel, and then also due to previous years and experiences that we've had here, we added a couple others. So this year in our proposed budget, we're proposing going from 201 full-time equivalents to 204. This includes a dispatcher. So in conversations with the chief last year, as well as this year, and conversations with the union, we've noticed that the way the dispatching schedule is set up with the union, there's actually overtime kind of almost built into it for staff, and we want to try to reduce that as much as we can. So our hope is that by hiring an additional dispatcher, that'll give our dispatchers some time off. It'll also give some flexibility within that schedule to ensure that we're not going to see any additional overtime or try to get that overtime under control. In the budget policy statement, there was a request for an economic development position. So in my budget that I'm proposing to all of you, I've included a kind of a combination position of an assistant director of planning as well as an economic development coordinator. Now, that's very different than an economic development director or somebody else. So the coordinator position is really to help coordinate the internal process. So once a business has decided we're going to set up within the town of South Windsor, there's a lot of hand-holding that has to go on to lead them through the processes of planning and zoning, the Economic Development Commission, maybe inland wetlands, maybe the fire marshal's office, to make sure all those different parts go as smoothly as possible. That's one thing that we're already kind of known for in South Windsor, but we can always do it better. And by having one person to kind of hold hands and go through that, I think we'll be able to do a really good job at that. That's always a part of that economic development piece that I've always personally struggled with, because it does present me with a bit of an ethical dilemma. If I were to take a new business that's come to town that I think this is going to be the best business ever, and I walk it into somebody that works for me and say to that person, this is the best business ever, it needs to get approved, we need to help them get through planning and zoning. What type of undue pressure, ethical dilemma does that put that person in, as well as put myself in? So personally, I actually avoid doing that, but we do need to have somebody to do that, and that's part of what this position can do. The other part of what this position can do is, as an assistant director of planning, our director of planning is actually planning on retiring at some point, and we need to start our succession planning in that department. We actually did something very similar in a building department a number of years ago when we knew our building official was going to retire. We put an assistant building official in place, and we were able to have a little bit of succession planning, so we didn't skip a beat, because for us, economic development is a very important activity, and that includes our planning activities. So we want to make sure that we don't lose out on that succession planning, and we don't want to have to, have any slowdowns go on in the department or anything of that nature because we're looking for somebody. So we kind of comboed those two together so that we could try to get somebody in there, start training them up, and then also get them in kind of the same mindset that a lot of our staff have, that is very economic development focused, very positive on economic development, and I think that'll be very beneficial to the community. And then the last position that we are proposing is to move a part-time position to actually a full-time position in the Human Services Department for a Human Services Specialist. We've seen a very large increase over the last years due to the pandemic and other challenges that we're seeing within society within the Human Services Department. They need that additional help, and we want to try to help them out in getting them there. So that accounts for the positions that we're proposing. So our town operations budget increase. So overall, the town operations budget, as I said, is going up 5.05%. This is a 10-year look back at all the increases of our budget year over year. And as you can see, our 10-year average is 3.32%, so we're a little above that, but as I said, we've got a lot of headwinds that we're facing this year, and there's some challenges associated with it. And that's what is really driving our budget overall for the general government side. Now, what is that $1.9 million really, what's driving it? Where is it coming from? So I always tell everybody that the business that we do as a municipality is a people business. Robots can't do our work. Computers can't do some of the work. We need a lot of people to do our work. And as a result, salaries and benefits is always one of the top driving forces in what our expenditures are. So as you can see, based upon our collective bargaining agreements and salaries, 1.3 of that 1.9 is going towards that. On the professional line item, that accounts for some increases to our town attorney's line item because as we've seen year over year, we've been going over budget on that line item. So when you've gone over budget multiple years in a row, at a certain point you have to kind of ask yourself, maybe we're under budget. Additionally, it includes land recording fees, audit fees, and then some engineering firms. Next categories are grants and contributions. That accounts for increases to like the fire department and the library and the Wood Memorial Library and some of those other nonprofit organizations in the community that we help out. And then our utilities, as you can see, have increased in cost pretty significantly as well. So those are the major categories under our budget drivers. Now, what about our trends in town expenditures over the last couple of years? So as you can see, and as we saw in the chart earlier, looking back 10 years, you can see the town operating budget has actually been shrinking over the last few years as it relates to the overall total budget. So in 2021, we were at 29.87%. We're now at 27.49%. So we're doing a little bit more with probably a little bit less. Overall, just on a dollar for dollar standpoint, you look at it, and we're looking at a 5.05% increase. And as you can see, we're going from 38.1 million to 40 million this year. So our capital budget, and this is one of the larger increases in the proposed budget to all of you. And capital is pretty important. And I think from conversations I've had with many of you talking about different capital projects and things out there, this is something that we talk about pretty regularly. This includes our infrastructure, our roads, our buildings, our large equipment, heavy equipment, things that, you know, they're long-term investments that we want to make sure we keep up, that we take care of, and that we make sure are maintained well. This year's capital committee's been meeting and looking at all kinds of different projects, and as a result, I really feel that it's important we start taking capital seriously and moving it forward, and that's why I moved it forward at the $4 million mark. And breaking down that $4 million, this kind of gives you an idea of where most of that money's going to. So as you can see, general government's $125,000. Next to that is building maintenance. Most of that's coming from the general fund contribution, but there is a small piece that's coming from the local capital improvement fund, which comes from the state, then infrastructure, and then communications. So the other flip side of the budget, we talk a lot about expenditures. The other flip side is also revenue. And our revenues are almost equally as important, but we don't spend a lot of time talking about them all the time. So these are the different categories that we get our revenues from, including property taxes, intergovernmental, local revenues, miscellaneous, and transfers. So intergovernmental, those are grants that we get from the state and sometimes even the federal government. Local revenues might be some permit fees, things of that nature. And then miscellaneous is actually our interest that we're gaining on some of our bank accounts. With interest rates increasing, we're starting to actually see our interest revenue generated going up as well. So, of course, since we have to have an additional $11 million for our budget expenditures, we have to pass a balanced budget, so we're looking for an additional $11 million in revenues. So where is that change coming from? So about $6.9 million is coming from taxes generated from our properties, generated from our properties. Also, we've got about $2.5 million, which is coming from our grandness growth. $1.1 million is coming from our state grants. And then, as you can see, about $1 million is coming from interest. And then transfers and miscellaneous. This is one item that typically we don't talk about too often, but sometimes we do. The town does have a debt stabilization fund to be able to, or a tax stabilization fund to be able to use in the event that we have large amounts of debt coming on. We can try to smooth some of that in. And we are going to be talking about possibly using that this year because we are starting to see pretty significant amounts of debt coming on board with some of the school payments, and we want to try to limit the impact to residents as much as possible. So as well as looking at the revenues growing, we have to look at the other side of the line. So as you can see, our ECS grant, our education cost sharing grant, we're estimating that's actually a decrease of about $210,000. And then lastly, while it's a negative, and I think we all look at it and go, oh my gosh, there's a decrease in prior year taxes of $200,000, it's actually a positive thing because we've been so successful at collecting taxes, there's a lot less that's sitting out there uncollected. So as a result, we were actually starting to estimate that revenue stream at a bit lower amount. So we do spend some time talking about our education cost sharing grant, with that being the largest grant that we do receive. So we are proposing that we would get about 11, well, the governor's budget is saying that we're going to get $11 million. We're estimating about 10.5 based upon communications that we've received from our state legislators and some of our lobbyist groups that represent municipalities. We feel fairly comfortable with that number. It could always go different ways as the state puts its budget together, but we're at this point fairly comfortable with it. And we always take into account the idea that we do have a charter school in our community, and they do end up having to receive a payment out of our ECS grant as well. So this is always an interesting chart to look at, and kind of the tale to be told here is that as our state grants and ECS grants go down, you can always see that property taxes end up going up. So grand list growth in our grand list. This year, this has to do with reval, and a lot of it changes a lot of things up. So our grand list actually increased by 23.56%, which is a unbelievable number when you look at what previous years may have been. We can attribute about 2.46% of that to just growth, real economic development, new businesses coming in, maybe houses being built, people buying new cars, things of that nature. 21.1% is due to reval. So when reval came in, they looked at everybody's homes, and they said, okay, well, these houses are selling for this amount more, and as a result, the value of them is higher, and that changed our grand list. So our new grand list number, and this is always the largest number in this presentation, is $3,761,117,114, which is the total value of all our homes, all our businesses, all our vehicles, everything in the community. That's what our assessor believes that the total value of it is. So at the proposed, so currently based upon that value of our grand list, we are proposing a 33.41 mill rate, which basically, as you can see, has gone up about 23.56%. I'm sorry, take that back. We are proposing a 33.41 mill rate, and we're also looking at our grand list growth of 23.56%. So this is our proposed mill rate at 33.41, and let's see if this will, there we go. So this basically shows you what happens in reval. So when we go through and we reevaluate all our properties and our values go up at 23.56%, you can see a very large drop in our mill rate as a result. So our mill rate last year was 38.71. This year our mill rate is down to 33.41. That is after the budget requests for increases and things of that nature. So one of the tricks in the budget this year and last year has been the motor vehicle mill rate cap. So as you know, the state of Connecticut put in place a cap for motor vehicles at 32.46 mils. Based upon some of our conversations with our municipal lobbying groups, as well as our legislators, we do believe we are going to be getting the reimbursement for the difference between the cap and what our mill rate is. So that's estimated to be about $2.1 million. We did receive it last year, so I think it's safe to say we should be receiving it again. So this is always an interesting one in terms of what's driving our mill rate. So we're actually looking at a 13.83% decrease in our mill rate this year, which is a good thing for all of us. That being said, what's driving it and where is it coming from? So as you see, above the line are actually increases and below the line are decreases. So as you can see, the largest decrease is our grand list change, which is due to reval. You could see some of the increases above our education, our town operating budget, capital, debt service. Whereas some of the other decreasers that pull it back down a little bit, non-tax revenue changes, motor vehicle, grand list growth, things of that nature. So, and our history in terms of changes, taking that 10-year look back, as you can see with reval, it really is an anomaly this year, looking at a 13.83% decrease in the mill rate. This chart again shows you talking about our tax stabilization fund, as well as the other part of our budget policy statement, which says that we should not be using any fund balance. This chart just goes to speak to that in terms of we haven't used any fund balance since 2019. This is a sample just to kind of take a look at what we're doing in terms of mill rates for the same house with reval going on. What does that look like? So as you can see, the gray portion of the chart is prior to reval. The green portion of the chart is after reval. And as you can see, about $518 is due to expenditure increases, whereas about $387 is due to the market value change associated with revaluation. Now this is how we calculate our mill rate and the process that we have to go through. So of course we go and we look at what our total budget is, which is $145,788,278. We take out our non-tax revenues, things of all those state grants and all the other things that we get, and that gives us the dollar amount that we actually need to raise. So that's $113,294,359. We also know that the value of one mill in our community this year is $3,391,412. So essentially what we do is we divide the taxes needed by the value of a mill, which gets us to that 33.41 mill rate. As we've done in previous years, we do have our budget dashboard. It'll be up by tomorrow morning along with this presentation for anybody to go in, take a look at. You could play around with the budget. You could take my job out of the budget and see how much money you'll save or not. You can have a good time. Give me a vacation. So you could really get to know what your tax dollars are being spent on and learn plenty of things about the budget. Additionally, you know, this is a public budget. It's a public process. I really do think it's important for people to participate. These are all the important dates that everybody should see and hear about and participate in as we move forward. And lastly, as I've always said, if you have a question, please don't hesitate to ask. It's my phone number as well as my email, and I'm always looking forward to answering those questions. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Maniscalco. What? Oh, you did. That was a very nice presentation, Mr. Maniscalco. That PowerPoint was very nice. We do have that in our books here that we can take with us. Yes, we do. It's lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Amanda. And thank you, Michael. This was wonderful. So, does anyone have any questions? Sure, Councilor Paterno.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Maniscalco, how does South Windsor compare to other towns in terms of grand list growth? You have any numbers for us or ideas?
I don't have any specific numbers offhand for you. You know, one thing I would say is last year, a number of communities around us went through reval as well, and they saw really large increases as a result of that revaluation all around us. So I mean, while it's an anomaly when you look back at the 10-year history of ourselves,
Yeah.
it's not an anomaly when you look around our region and our area of what's happening.
Right, okay, thank you.
Any other counselors? Not seeing any? Well, thank you, Mr. Maniscalco. We'll dive right into the budget book and look everything over and get busy on that budget. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on. We are now on to 13, gotta get my glasses on, E, I believe. Counselor Evans.
Resolution accepting the resignation of Dan Resende from Park and Recreation Commission. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby accepts with regret the resignation of Dan Resende from Park and Recreation Commission effective March 8, 2023. And be it further resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby extends its thanks to Dan Resende for the time he has dedicated to serving his community by his membership on the Park and Recreation Commission.
Is there a second? Second. Is there any discussion? Absolutely, Counselor Kubaski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank Coach Resende for his time on Parks and Rec, but also for his time as a coach in the South Windsor Legion. My son had him as a coach, and as he said over the weekend, I'll paraphrase, he said Coach Resende could throw batting practice for days, and at my age now, I throw one snowball, and I would have taken Advil and go sit down. And the fact that Coach Resende was able to throw batting practice nonstop for all these years, very, very impressive. So I do want to thank him for his time, again, for not only Parks and Rec, but what he contributed to the Legion program here in South Windsor.
Thank you. Counselor Paterno?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Counselor Kozakowski, one snowball? Okay. I want to add my thanks to Coach Resende as well, not only for his time as a coach in this town, but on the Park and Rec Commission at all, as well. He served many, many years, but also as in his role as director of the Monday Night Social Club that provided many, many activities for students and residents with disabilities in this town. So thank you, Coach.
Counselor Evans?
I don't know Mr. Resende quite as well as these two gentlemen, but he has time on the commission, the Park and Rec Commission, long outnumbers mine, but he has always been such an instrumental part of the commission, very passionate, and I really do thank him on behalf of the commission and just the work that he has done for the Park and Recs.
Thank you. Any other counselors? I'd like to say thank you to Dan for all the time that he's given to the children of South Windsor, and Dan and I went to school together, so I'd just like to say thank you. He's a hometown boy, and he's really contributed to our community over the years and touched many lives, and we truly thank you for your time and energy and effort, Dan. Be well. Take care. And is there your lights on? I'm sorry? All those in favor? Any opposed? Not seeing any. The motion carries. Counselor Evans, 13F.
Resolution accepting the resignation of Ashley Aline from Social Justice and Racial Equity Commission. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby accepts with regret the resignation of Ashley Aline from the Social Justice and Racial Equity Commission effective March 13, 2023. And be it resolved, further resolved that the South Windsor Town Council extends its thanks to Ashley Aline for the time she has dedicated to serving her community by her membership on the Social Justice Racial Equity Commission.
Thank you. And is there any discussion, comments? Counselor Evans?
I really want to thank Ashley. She took on the secretary role for the Social Justice Racial Equity Commission. She is young, she is passionate. She is very, very involved in multiple facets of the community here in South Windsor and our surrounding communities. She has a very full schedule, and I think she's going to do great things. And I wish her the best for everything she has done for us and everything she's going to do for other portions of the community. So thank you, Ashley.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashley, for your time and your energy that you did dedicate and put in to the Social Justice and Racial Equity Commission. We appreciate you, and we appreciate all the hard work that you've done for that commission. Is all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Not hearing any. The motion carries. Counselor Evans? 13G.
Resolution accepting the resignation of Shelley Solomon from the Social Justice and Racial Equity Commission. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby accepts with regret the resignation of Shelley Solomon from the Social Justice and Racial Equity Commission effective March 13th, 2023, and be it further resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby extends its thanks to Shelley Solomon for the time she has dedicated to serving her community by her membership on the Social Justice and Racial Equity Commission.
Is there a second? Second. Is there any discussion? Counselor Evans?
Thank you. I know Shelley is leaving the community of South Windsor, which is why she had to resign from this commission. She's no longer a resident of South Windsor. Again, she was very passionate. She had a lot to contribute to the commission. She spoke very highly of the work that the commission had already done, and I really thank her for her input and contribution.
Thank you. Thank you, Shelley, for yes, all your input and your contribution and your dedication. And good luck and best of luck to you on your future endeavors. And we're sorry to see you leave South Windsor, but best of luck to you. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Not hearing any. The motion carries. Councilor Kubowski.
Resolution accepting the resignation of Nancy Walsh from the Social Justice and Racial Equity Commission. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby accepts with regret the resignation of Nancy Walsh from the Social Justice and Racial Equity Commission effective March 14th, 2023. And be it further resolved that the South Windsor Town Council extends its thanks to Nancy Walsh for the time she has dedicated to serving her community by her membership on the Social Justice and Racial Equity Commission.
Is there a second? And Councilor Evans, would you like to comment?
I thank Nancy for her attendance and contributions. She again spoke very highly of the work that she saw coming from the commission, and she looked forward to seeing what the commission was going to do despite some family and personal obligations that prevented her from continuing with the commission. So thank you to Nancy for her willingness to be a part of the commission.
That's what I was going to say. Thank you, Nancy, for stepping up and being committed to the Social Justice and Racial Equity Commission. And thank you for your time and energy and effort that you put in. We appreciate you. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Not hearing any. The motion carries. Councilor Kozakowski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Motion to approve resolution accepting the resignation of Lawrence Brown from the Energy Committee. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby accepts with regret the resignation of Lawrence Brown from the Energy Committee effective March 14th, 2023. And be it further resolved that the South Windsor Town Council extends its thanks to Lawrence Brown for the time he has dedicated to serving his community by his membership on the Energy Committee.
Is there a second? And is there any discussion? Councilor Paterna.
Yes, I just wanted to thank Larry. He's been with the Energy Commission for many years and made some amazing contributions, and we thank him for his work.
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for joining our Energy Committee and working with Councilor Paterna and Councilor Kozakowski, correct? You're also on the Energy Committee? And thank you for what you brought forward over the years to the town of South Windsor. We really appreciate your ideas and what you've done for our town and our community concerning energy. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Not hearing any. The motion carries. Thank you. Councilor Paterna, 13J.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a resolution amending the term and date of Louise Neary, a member of the Economic Development Commission. Whereas the South Windsor Town Council previously adopted a resolution appointing Louise Neary as a member of the Economic Development Commission on December 7, 2020, which resolution stated an incorrect term end date. Therefore, be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby appoints Louise Neary as a member of the Economic Development Commission for a term ending November 30th, 2025.
Second. Is there any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on, Councilor Gamble.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution amending the term and date of Michael Baganski, an alternate of the Economic Development Commission. Whereas the South Windsor Town Council previously adopted a resolution appointing Michael Baganski as an alternate on the Economic Development Commission on February 22nd, 2022, which resolution stated an incorrect term end date. Therefore, be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby appoints Michael Baganski for a term ending November 30th, 2023.
Is there any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any. The motion carries. Councilor Kubowski, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution reappointing Clifton Larson Allen as the town auditor for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023, at a fee of $65,000. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby reappoints the firm of Clifton Larson Allen LLP of West Hartford, Connecticut, to audit the books and accounts of the town of South Windsor as provided in the general statutes of the state of Connecticut. And be it further resolved that the fee for said auditing services by Clifton Larson Allen LLP will be $65,000 for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023, for a term expiring December 31st, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any conversation on this? Who's, from someone on the audit committee, please? Go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to say we met with them during the audit committee meeting. It's a very impressive organization. It was the first time I had a chance to meet any of them. One of the keys for me, and I asked Vanessa Perry, who's not here, but she was in the meeting, how the working relationship was between the town employees and the auditors. And she says it's been a very good working relationship. Being an accountant who's worked with auditors before, it is not normally the case in that situation. There's constant headbutting, and the fact that we have a good working relationship with them, I'm very happy to push them forward and recommend them.
Thank you, Councilor Kubowski. Is there any other discussion? Where? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Gamble.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilor Kubowski, can you explain, I'm not understanding the fiscal year ending and expiring at the end of the year for $65,000. What are we actually buying for $65,000? When does that term end, and when does the, just explain the dates and the money and how that all pans out?
I'm going to ask Mr. Maniscalco, I believe I know what it is, but I think Mr. Maniscalco will have a much better idea.
So essentially what we're doing is we're hiring our, another firm, or hiring our firm to come in and do an audit again for the town. So annually, we're required to have an audit done and turned into the Office of Policy and Management for the state of Connecticut. So this is be hiring that firm to come and do that.
Mr. Maniscalco, I think he's referring to, if you look at the resolution, please, the dates on the resolution, it says June 30th, 2023, but then if you read farther down, it says fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023, for a term expiring December 31st, 2023. So there's two different dates in there, so I think, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, that's part A of my question. And then you brought up a second point.
The second part.
Where it says we're reappointing, and you're saying we have to hire outside. So are these already existing?
Well, yeah, so they're currently our auditing firm, and we're basically reappointing them or rehiring them to do it again for this upcoming year's audit that we're doing.
Right, our fiscal year ends June 30th.
I get that, yes.
So they now will audit those books. We have to choose an auditor.
Okay, so it's for the time like July 1 to December 31st, and where they're doing the services the second half of the calendar year, but they're auditing our books for the fiscal year.
The fiscal year, yeah.
That ends
That's
on
why
June.
it's
That ends on June 30.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
I get it.
That's
Thank
why
you.
it's
And
confusing.
we're reappointing the same people we already. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're not hiring.
Yeah, there's I think Councilor Kubowski could probably follow up on this. There's very few people that are actually in the business of doing municipal audits anymore. There's a number of people who went out of business and nobody's really gone into it, so, yeah. Gotcha.
Thank you, Councilor Gamble. Councilor Kazakowski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick question for the town manager. So is this, how many years have we been using this firm? Ballpark.
Yeah, I believe that's.
Okay, so that leads into my question. Like, is this an annual thing where you have to adopt, transfer funds to pay for this, or is this, or do we have to do like a bid, RFP for the services every year, or how does that process work?
We discussed doing an RFP at the committee level, but decided against that because basically we were told that they were going to increase their fees significantly if we went out to do a bid. And knowing that there's so few firms actually in the business of doing this right now, we kind of know who the players are. I know Patty Perry, our finance director, reached out to a couple other communities who have some of those other firms and had just awarded bids to them, and their bids were
So do we have to do a bid waiver, take action and do a bid waiver?
don't believe so, because this is a, this is an exempt service in the charter, I believe it's a professional service. This is one of the very few exemptions.
Okay. And last question, is this money, these funds budgeted for this? Oh. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Not hearing any, the motion carries. Moving on, Deputy Mayor King, please.
Resolution setting a time and place for a public hearing to receive citizen input on amending the ordinance that created the Social Justice and Racial Equity Commission.
We may want to hold off on this.
Yes.
We may want to hold off on this until we have our discussion. Set it for the week, the meeting after that, Counselor Evans? Is that what you're saying?
I believe we have to read it regardless because it's in our agenda, but then we can choose.
Right.
To table it?
Yep.
We'll actually postpone it.
No, we can vote it down.
We can vote it down, or we can postpone it, doesn't matter, yeah.
Or
So,
you can either amend the date, or we could postpone it to the next meeting.
All right, so let me get it out then. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby sets Monday, April 3rd, 2023 at 8:15 p.m. in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall, 1540 Sullivan Avenue, South Windsor, Connecticut, as the time and place for a public hearing to receive citizen input on amending the ordinance that created the Social Justice and Racial Equity Commission.
is there a second? Is there any discussion? Counselor Evans?
I'd like to propose that we not move forward this time, but move this to our next agenda? Or should we change? Can we set a meeting for 2 meetings? Can we set a public hearing for 2 meetings out? That's my only question. I don't know if we can.
Mr. Maniscalco?
You could amend the resolution to change the date if you wanted.
That's, yeah.
Do you want to amend the resolution to change the date?
To change the date to April 17th?
This
one
is at
8:15. So it's okay? Yep. Okay,
But the date is what?
the 17th. Is that right?
So Counselor Evans, do you want to?
I'd like to propose that we change it to Monday, April 17th, 2023 at 8:15 PM.
Is that acceptable to?
Question, Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Because the general government budget is set for 8 o'clock.
Mhm.
Are we going to be done by 8:15 for another public hearing? Shouldn't this be like 8:30 at least?
I can postpone this public hearing until we're finished with the first public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
And is acceptable, friendly amendment accepted on the change of date? Yes? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Not hearing any, the motion carries. Counselor Kozakowski, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Motion to approve resolution setting a time and place to receive citizen input on the appropriation of $150,000 from the capital non-recurring account to the Philip R. Smith Portable Projects account. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby sets Monday, April 3rd, 2023 at 8:30 in the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall, 1540 Sullivan Avenue, South Windsor, Connecticut, as the time and place for a public hearing to receive citizen input on the appropriation of $150,000 from the capital non-recurring account to the Philip R. Smith Portable Project account.
Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the resolution to change the time of that public hearing from 8:30 to 8 p.m.
I believe we already have something at 8 p.m. that evening.
Oh, I'm, okay, I stand corrected, to 8:15.
Ms. Poma, can you please give us an update on the public hearings for that evening?
The social ordinance the social justice was supposed to be at 8:15, so we could move it to 8:15.
Yes.
But
Sure.
Counselor
Okay.
Kozakowski can't amend, someone else will have to make that amendment.
I know, he can't amend his own resolution. Just a minute, please. Ms. Poma, is that time change okay with our whole listing of public hearings that evening? That's acceptable? Okay, can someone make a motion to change, a friendly amendment to change the time on that, please? Deputy Mayor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to make a friendly amendment that we change the time from 8:30 to 8:15 on Monday, April 3rd, 2023, if that's acceptable.
Is that acceptable? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Not hearing it. Motion carries. Thank you. Deputy Mayor King.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Resolution setting a time and place for a public hearing to receive citizen input on the proposed general government budget for fiscal year 2023-2024. Be resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby sets Monday, April 17th, 2023 at 8 p.m. the council chambers of the South Windsor Town Hall, 1540 Sullivan Avenue, South Windsor, Connecticut, as a time and place for a public hearing to receive citizen input on the proposed general government budget for fiscal year 2023-2024.
And that has the correct time? Thank you. And is there a second? And any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Not hearing any. The motion carries. Councilor Lydecker, please.
Resolution approving the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget calendar. Be it resolved that the South Windsor Town hereby approves the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget calendar, a copy of which is attached as Exhibit A.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Councilor Lydecker.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Mr. Maniscalco, I did send an email yesterday. I don't know if you had a chance to respond. I am requesting and wondering, I know April 11th to April 15th is April vacation for the schools. Some of us with young children may be away during that week. Is there any way, especially with the sticker shock of capital projects tonight, if we can move Park and Rec and capital projects presentations from April 13th to April 11th?
I did respond to your email this afternoon. We will be recording all those, and I can provide recordings of the meeting. And if any of you have additional questions or things, I'm more than happy to bring them to that meeting to get them answered then. Or we can set up some outside meeting after the fact, after the vacation's back.
Is there a reason we can't move them? I would much rather be here live in person, especially for capital project, and that's not a possibility on the 13th.
Well, it's at the discretion of the council, so if the council wants to do it, we'll make it work, but.
If we could ask Madam Mayor if there's a way we can take a consensus to see if the Park and Rec and capital projects could just be moved to the night of the 11th versus the 13th. I don't know what councilor schedules are during that week.
If you look at the calendar, you'll be able to see who's presenting on April 11th. The Police Department, Emergency Management, Fire Marshal, and Volunteer Fire Department. We would be able to squeeze in those two of Capital and Park that evening?
We can give it a shot. I mean, it'll be a late
Sure.
night, but.
Sure. Would that be a problem, Mr. Roberts, for Capital? So April 11th, I'm asking for a consensus for Councilor Lydecker if we want to move Park and Rec and Capital to April 11th. You guys have the calendars in front of you. And Councilor Kozakowski, do you have a comment to that?
Yes, thank you. I just want to support that change.
Councilor Evans, no comment? Okay. Is there a consensus on changing that? Can I go around the room? Yay, thumbs up, yes, hands up, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Okay, we all have a consensus there. That was not an official vote. Councilor Evans, no. Okay, so that was good. There you go, Councilor Lydecker, you're good. Now can we approve the calendar? There was a second? Did I take a second on the calendar? I did? No? Yes? Yes, thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Not hearing any, and that was accepted as amended. Yes, that was a friendly amendment on the change of the date. Okay, moving on, we have Q. Councilor Paterna.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a resolution authorizing the appropriation of $75,000 from the Capital Non-Recurring Funds account to the Wood Memorial Library and Museum Steep Grant account for HVAC upgrades. Whereas the Town Council wishes to use $75,000 in capital non-recurring funds to assist in paying for the HVAC upgrades at the Wood Memorial Library and Museum. And whereas on November 16th, 2020, the Town Council approved the resolution accepting a grant in the amount of $149,000 HVAC upgrades for the Wood Memorial Library and Museum from the State Bond Commission. And whereas on August 12, 2022, an opinion of probable cost was completed by the design engineering firm estimating the cost of the project to be closer to $200,000. And whereas these additional funds will help ensure that the project is completed as fully designed, therefore be it resolved that the South Windsor Town Council hereby authorizes the town manager, Mr. Michael Maniscalco, to transfer $75,000 from the capital non-recurring account to the Wood Memorial Library and Museum steep grant account for the HVAC upgrades to the Wood Memorial Library and Museum.
Is there a second?
Second.
Counselor Gamble, do you have comments?
I was hoping that everybody who spoke about the wood would still be here at this late hour to watch the vote. Maybe they're home watching it now from their TVs, but I agree with everything that they said. I think that the wood is a treasure of this town. My family and I have spent many days and hours there, and we enjoy all that it has to offer. So I fully support this. I look forward to keeping this thing going for as long as we can, and this is a great way to do that.
Councilor Paterno?
Madam Mayor, thank you. I agree with everything Councilor Gamble just said, and I also want to remind us that they have been storing documents for the town of South Windsor for many years without charging us any rent. So they've been doing us a service, and this HVAC system will make sure the humidity doesn't destroy those documents that we have stored there. Thank you.
I'd like to, if the council would allow me, I have a letter here that was given to me earlier this evening that was put inside of my packet of information from someone that is in support of our decision of our vote right now. You all have it before you, but if I could, I'd like to read it now. To the Honorable Elizabeth Pendleton and members of the South Windsor Town Council, dear Madam Mayor, I have worked on behalf of the Friends of Wood Memorial Library for almost 30 years as director and as a board member. I have always seen the Wood Library building as the most distinctive and distinguished public building in South Windsor, thanks to the generosity of philanthropist William Wood. It is worth noting that approximately 96 years, the building has been self-sustaining and has not required any investment from the town. It was for 40 years operated by the town as a public library, and for the last 50 years has been operated by the Friends as a library and cultural center, drawing its audience from South Windsor and beyond. The Wood Library Association has embarked on updating the facility in many ways to bring it up to today's modern standards. The wood is an asset to the town, both culturally and financially, and I urge the council to vote for the necessary $75,000 to complete the HVAC project. Yours truly, Virginia Macro. Thank you for allowing me to read that. And we have a second. We have a first, a second discussion, and all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Not hearing any, the motion carries. Thank you. Number 14, passage of ordinance. Number 15, public input on any matter. Public input for any other matter shall not exceed 30 minutes. When recognized by the mayor or myself, the speaker shall approach the lectern and give their name and address. Speakers shall avoid personal attacks or impugning or alleging an improper motive to any person. The speaker may address the council on any item. The speaker shall limit their speaking time to 5 minutes. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to the town council this evening on any matter not on the agenda? Anyone from the public? Twice, 3 times, anyone from the public? Not seeing anyone? We're moving on to item 16, communications from the council. There are none, I don't believe. Executive session, Deputy Mayor King, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Councilor Kozakowski. Communications from the council, I apologize.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to take this opportunity to congratulate the UConn ladies and men's basketball in their performance in the Big East. Big East for the women and the in the NCAA tournament. So far, they've exhibited dominant play, and I wish them luck in the men in the Sweet 16 and the women they play tonight, and hopefully moving forward in the tournament. So go Huskies.
Okay, Deputy Mayor King, please. Thank you.
So I just wanted to congratulate V-Link Incorporated. They were named in the Hartford Business Journal, the #2 best places to work on March 6, 2023. The list is made up of 29 small to medium businesses and 16 large companies, and they were rated #2. They're right on 701 John Fitch Boulevard, so it's always a great thing. They're a software engineering and IT staffing company, so the fact they got honored March 2nd, so a couple of weeks ago. But shout out to them for being one of the #2 best place to work in the state of Connecticut.
Awesome. I'd just like to reiterate about Dude's Donuts coming to Evergreen Walk and the grand opening ribbon cutting that we had there. Delicious donuts. It's great. They're going to be at our farmer's market this summer. And go get those cinnamon raisin donuts. I'm just saying, they're delicious. Congratulations to Dude Donuts, and thank you for coming to South Windsor. Now we're moving on to item 17, executive session, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to invite the town manager, Michael Maniscalco, and the assistant town manager, Ms. Perry, as well as the assistant town manager, Mr. Roberts. I don't believe there's any other appropriate personnel deemed necessary involving the purchase of property listed as 8 Collins Lane.
Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Not hearing any, the motion carries. We will be adjourning from the executive session and not coming back to our meeting here. Thank you.